Broadcast is live.
Hey, Dad, good to see you, sir.
Hey, son, good to see you too, man.
Welcome
Yep.
to another edition of Lessons Learned. We're live now. We're going to give our family and friends an opportunity to come in and join us on this live. I'm excited, Dad. We had a great time last week in our first live opportunity of sharing lessons about leadership and life. And I'm thankful about the impact that it seems that we have had in just one broadcast.
One broadcast, son. There was a lot of people talking about it. My phone was ringing off the hook. People were saying they appreciated the dialogue between you and me, father and son, minister to minister, and that we shared some things that were helpful to other ministries, other ministers, and other people.
I love it.
So,
I see some of our
yeah.
family is coming in. Hello, everybody. We can't see that you're here. So will you drop a comment? Let us know. Just say hello to us. As a matter of fact, tell us what city you're in. Hello. I see the Buchanans are here. Hello.
All right.
Nice to see
Arizona.
you. All right. All our family that's in, let us know. Just greet us. Hello. We're going to share briefly again this week, but that's some very cool things. Sherry Hawkins, Rochester, New York. Hey, hey. How are you? Let us know that you're here. Just kind of greet us in the comment section. Sierra Vista, Arizona. Hello. Thank you all for being here. Let us know what city you're watching from. Just greet us. And as a matter of fact, if you will, Brother David Morris is on. Hey, man, if you will, all our viewers who are sharing with us for this week's session of Lessons Learned about Leadership and Life, would you go ahead and click the share button? Invite those who you follow to join us. Dad, I'm sharing on my pages. If you'll share on yours.
And I'm sharing on my page as well. I'm sharing on my page as well.
We got family from Syracuse, New York. Hello. Hello, my best friend. Hello, Sam Clark is on. Hey, bro. We're all here. We got family from Rochester. Wonderful. Hello, everybody. We're going to get started. But we just want to greet everybody. The one and only Bill Ross from Columbia, Maryland is in the building. Hello. It's one of our Baptist brothers. And we are thankful for everybody being here. We're going to give everybody about a minute to get on. And we're excited to share more lessons learned. Listen, Dad, I am convinced that life is about learning lessons. And if you're not learning in life,
all of my days.
Yes, sir.
All of my days, that's what I've had to do is learn lessons. And even today, 35 years of pastoring, 56 years of life, and every day there's a new lesson that you learn to make this journey even easier. So, yeah, it's all about learning lessons.
Cousin Ashley is on. Hey, Ashley. Nice to see you, cousin. Thanks for being on with us.
I think Ashley's in California or she's in St. Louis. She's way out there somewhere.
Love it. I love it. Hey, family. Thank you all for coming in. Thank you for sharing. Hit the like button. Y'all just comment, talk with us. It's a conversation tonight. We're not preaching or lecturing. We're in conversation with you about lessons that we're all learning about leading and about life. And Dad, I want to start us today because it's so glaringly obvious that we have to continue to lift the banner of equitable treatment in this nation. I see Rakita Mann on, and I just want to pause and greet her. Let's just give her
do that.
Let's just give her a moment to do that. Time, and let's just, Dan, will you just say her name as well, so that
you got to do this. Listen, in order for us to continue doing lessons learned about life and leadership, we must mention, let's call her our promoter, our sponsor, our backbone, our lifeline, and that's Rickey Harvey Mangum, and she's with us. That's my daughter. That's Rickey's sister, and Rickey is doing a great job in North Carolina. You good, Rickey?
We have to give her a shout out. Hey, everybody.
We got to give her
Brother Calker Brothers. Hey, man, thank you for joining us. All right, Dad, I want to pause because just last Sunday, 7 days ago, we were naming Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd. And in just 7 short days, among those names, we see added to the list of Black lives prematurely plucked from this world, a young man in Atlanta who we want to discuss
Brooks.
today. That absolutely, I want to name him, and I want us to all consider the name of Rayshard Brooks,
Brooks.
because I think it's important, Dad. I was listening to a gospel song while I was running. I'm kind of running. I'm striving to run and walk 100 miles a month on foot. Have done it successfully. Hey, everybody, thank you all for joining. As you all are coming in, please click the share button. Help us to get the word out that Lessons Learned Live is on tonight, Sunday night at 8 p.m. But Dad, I was running, and there's a gospel song that probably came out in 2018 that says, "I have no reason to fear." And I was running in a predominantly white neighborhood, and I felt fear because of the social climate, and even prior to that, I just felt the level of discomfort that we feel as African Americans in this country in predominantly white spaces. And while that gospel song says, "I have no reason to fear," Dad, the truth is that in America, Black people do have something to fear. Can we speak to, this is more of a life lesson opportunity, but will you speak to, before we get into the ministry, let's just talk about how you deal with fear that is natural to us as Black people and as Black men.
Yeah. Well, first of all, there are reasons to fear, and those names of the African Americans that you just mentioned are reasons for us to fear. And as Black men in America, son, I'm on what we call the Police Accountability Board here in Rochester, and what that means, as a matter of fact, I was just in a meeting prior to coming to this meeting. And one of the things that we're doing is working toward police accountability, which is to say that you can't treat us like second-class citizens, people of darker skins, people, minorities, so to speak, and people of darker skins. You can't treat us any kind of way and get away with it. Now, that's all about the discipline and the accountability, which has nothing to do with the fears. And the fears are those heartbeats and those trembles sometimes that we get even when we're driving our cars and look in our rearview mirror and see a policeman who is paid to protect us, paid to help see us through a day of safety. They get behind us in our cars. And even today, I find myself pulling off to the nearest, if it's a 7-Eleven, a grocery store, a driveway. When the police gets behind me now, I find myself pulling off turn, making a detour, because in a matter of seconds, your life can be taken from you. And the bottom line is, today it's because you're a Black man. And Black lives do matter. I understand it now more than I've ever understood it before. So there are fears. And with those fears, there are reactions that we are subject to take. Our voices raised. We have strong voices. We have masculine voices. We have voices that can be threatening to people who don't understand our voice. And so rather than take chances on my voice being misunderstood, I do things now to protect myself. And I say to all of my sons, my African American sons, you have to do the same thing too. In the meantime, there has to be some police reform. There's got to be some discipline, and there's got to be a change. And I'll say this. We have marched, we have protested, we've done a lot of things in the past, but I believe this time there is a movement going on today that's going to make some difference in America because of what we have seen, what we are seeing, and what we saw today going on in Atlanta, Georgia. There are going to be some changes made.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I decided, to your point, while there are so many changes that are needed that we're seeing be initiated through the rage that is coming about as a result of these continued realities that are happening for Black and brown people in America, I decided while I was walking that day that one, to acknowledge that my fear was rational, right? And two, to not let my fear control me, right? And so I think there's a difference in, here's a lesson for us, that there's a difference in letting the fear of the Black experience in America control us to make us stop versus what I hear you saying, which is to make a wise choice for my well-being, that I'm just not going to get in front of the police for the sake of my well-being. I think that's huge. Thank you for that. And I want to merge right into really who we are and what we do, because I want to keep before the people, while we're not coming on as experts about life or leadership, we are speaking through the lens of your and my experiences.
Right.
And
this
so,
is life as we know it. This is life as we know it. These are lessons as we know it. These are things that we have learned in, actually, let's see, 28 and 56. That's what, 84 years of life put together, almost 100 years of life. And so all we're doing here is sharing what we have learned together. And there may be some differences because, again, I'm a baby boomer. You are a millennial, and I'm sure at some point there'll be some things that you've learned that works for you that I wouldn't dare try, and there are some things that have worked for me that probably would not work for you.
Absolutely.
So at some point we'll talk about not just what we agree on, but what our differences as we navigate through life.
Big time. Hey, I see all of our friends coming on. I just want to say hello to everybody. If you haven't spoken to us, greet us in the comment. Just say hello. Click that share button and share with your timeline that we are on. Dad, I remember one of the most valuable lessons about ministry that came directly from you was a lesson that ministry is about caring. I don't even, do you remember teaching me that ministry is about caring? Now, everybody who's with us is not in ministry, but everybody has a platform to care for people in your everyday life. Dad, speak to that. What is the care that we need to be exercising, particularly in times like these, COVID, racism, so much social consciousness that we should have towards other people? Talk about care for us.
So one of the things we went through a year-long deacon training at our church. This church, and basically all the churches that I've pastored, we've gone through year-long and even more extended training with leaders of the church. And even having used every book that I have used during school, seminary, divinity school, I've taken those books to school, and I've taken those books to the church, and we've used them in our training. The bottom line for all of the ministries that are in leadership position is care. And so when I've spoken to my leadership teams and they ask, and I say to them, people will ask you, what is it that you do as a deacon? What is it that you do as a trustee? Or what is it that you do as a director of ministry, a director of whatever you're doing? Now we're talking particularly in church. And I said, if there's one word that you can say to describe what you do, is care. Care, regardless of your position, it means you care. It means you care. That's a Reverend Bun moment right there. Care means care. So that means if you pull up in your parking lot and you see paper on the grounds, you care enough to pick that paper up. Not about your position, but about your position.
Wow.
You understand? Not your position, but your position. And so you care enough to wipe the door and not say it's somebody else's job or let the other fella do it. So care means what the Bible would say, whatsoever your hands find to do. And listen, because of the needs of our community, the needs of our church, the needs of our people, if you put your hands in the right places, there will always be a need for your hands. It says, whatsoever your hands find to do, do it with all of your might, with all of your power, with all of your being do it. And so caring is just doing what needs to be done in your particular setting, in my setting, and various settings. The needs are always different. But whatever your eyes see and your hands see to do, you do that. You help people, you lift people, you develop people through the gifts that God has given to you.
And what I just heard you describe, Dad, is the equation and path to greatness.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think go ahead.
The way up, and you come in, son. The way up is helping, but I'm going to use your word. The way up is caring. You got to care where the other fella is. Let me say this. Craig Wilson in Memphis, Damian Savage in Memphis, William Watson in Memphis. When I was on the road and really traveling, I was in the plane and they were in the car on the road. Every time I see Craig, not every time, but quite often when I see Craig and we're in public, Craig will say, tell them, and we understand the God factor. God made us all. Whatever status, whatever platform, whatever strength and influence we have with people, God gave us that. But if you have that, God also used individuals to help you manifest the gift that he put in you. And Craig Wilson is one who I enjoy watching him say, Rickey, tell them who made you. And that means tell them who cared. When you were on the road, who drove for you? When you had 15 and 20 lockers of sermons and notes and your children needed to get from one town to another and you were on the plane, who took your children? And so the point to your thing is, Rick, help somebody else. You said the key to greatness is help and caring. Now, Craig is bigger than I am, whatever that means. But he helped me to get where I am. And in the meantime, if you pushing somebody and you got your hands on them, remember we did that illustration at church one time, every time they make a step forward, you step forward too. And so I've watched ministers grow because they were pushing somebody else.
Kevin. Yeah, that just screams to me. It's that idea is so countercultural because we think that the greatest among us are the ones with the most shine, are the ones with the most status, are the ones with the most acclaim. And I'm hearing like this availability and that the platform to be great is I'm reminded of the words of Jesus, right? That the greatest in the kingdom of God are the ones who will serve. And we may not all be able to hop on a plane and speak on the platform at all three of George Floyd's funeral. You may not make every protest in the nation. You may not be you or your organization may not be able to feed every hungry person, but you can feed somebody. You can care for somebody. You can impact somebody. And I appreciate that huge lesson that my greatness is about my ability and willingness to care for somebody else. And it's not about status and clout. And that's huge.
So greatness is connected to a whole lot of people. Greatness is connected to a whole lot of people. None of us got where we are by ourselves. Wow. Greatness is connected to a lot of people. And so that drives us to another point. In this business or in this calling that we have, you got to care about people. You got to love people. You got to have relations with people because people, and we don't like to say make us, but people make us and break us. This brings me to a point that I was thinking about us talking about is how do you feel about what people say about you? How do you feel about what people say about you? And some people say, I don't care. But our life is about influence. That's what we do, is we influence people to do the right thing. And that's based on our integrity. And so we must care about what people say about us. We must care about their thoughts about us, because if we don't care and we live like we don't care, then we have no influence. And if we have no influence, we have no need to be in the seats that we hold, right, or in the places that we hold. It's all about how much influence that we have.
Yeah, I think there's a difference uh, between owning the responsibility of your reputation versus your reputation owning you.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's
yeah.
different. I think we own the responsibility of our reputation, meaning it's important for us to have integrity and to have a record of serving, right, that precedes us. And that's different than I need the reputation, therefore I will behave in a said manner. That's a different. I think that's important, because we try to over spiritualize stuff and say, "Oh no, I don't care what people say about me." Oh, you should.
You should. That's a grandma moment right there.
Yes,
you should care. You should care. Jesus cared so much until he said, "Who do men say that I am the Son of Man am?" He cared so much until he said, "Who do you say
yes,
that I am?" And so, yeah, you gotta care. Gotta care. You cannot be successful in ministry without caring.
Wow.
We're not saying without having a 3-point sermon.
Wow.
We're not saying you cannot be successful without having a doctoral degree or MD, but you cannot be successful if you don't care, because God won't bless you.
I'm in the home, but I need an usher. That's huge.
You
That's huge. I need ushering like smelling salt. They don't pass out in church anymore, but I could right now. I remember, and here's a big thing when we talk about serving and greatness. I remember close to 10 years ago, maybe 7 or 8, just coming into a conviction about my calling and being asked by well-meaning people, what are you going to do to fill your father's shoes? You got big shoes to fill, Rickey Jr. Your dad is a nationally renowned man of God. He's locally established. He has had deep and wide impact. His reputation goes before him. He is a powerful, anointed preacher, and the list goes on with people's praises for Rickey Harvey Jr. Long live Dr. Harvey, right? And people would ask, how are you going to fill his shoes? And this is one of the greater things that I appreciate about how you have helped to navigate my life and my process pastorally. And that is that no part of my journey includes me trying to fill your shoes, as much as my job and my assignment is to find my own shoes and fill them well. I think so many of us walk around with the burden of fulfilling other people's path and shoes and being somebody else well. How many people have gone through life being somebody else well, mirroring somebody else's process and journey, and never discovering themselves? What a sad reality. And so, Dad, what are some lessons for us to take as it relates to being honest and content with who we are, ministerially, personally, every way?
So 3 people come to my mind, 3 lessons come to my mind. Many years ago, I was invited to an all-white church, the Macon Road Baptist Church in Memphis. I had met the pastor, Reverend Wayne Webb, at a prayer breakfast. And of course, being a quartet singer, at that breakfast, I had like on a red suit, I had white shirt, red tie, red shoes, red socks. And Macon Road Baptist Church, you know how Dad used to dress. And Macon Road Baptist Church is a conservative, white, Southern Baptist church. and they asked the young man to come. I was pastoring St. Paul in those days, and they asked me to come. And so I told the church, we're going over to Macon Road Baptist Church. Everybody, we're going to be conservative, put on your black and white. And I put on a black suit, a white shirt, a black tie, black shoes, white and black socks, so forth. And I went. And to be honest, I took an old Adrian Rogers sermon. I'll never forget the sermon. It's what's inside that count. And I reworked the sermon. And that's a conversation to have later about using other people's sermons. I took an Adrian Rogers sermon and I Rickey Harvey the sermon, went over to the church and I preached it like a white preacher. And at the end of the day, we were getting ready to leave the church, and the pastor said, Brother Rickey, you are different from what I thought. I was kind of expecting the person that I saw to be here, and you look like us. Kenneth Whalum Sr., who was a mentor to me, I shared that story with him, and he says he needed you like you needed him. He was inviting you to bring that level of energy and spirit into his atmosphere. And then your people who would shout at the drop of a hat really needed to calm down a little bit and listen and participate in the listening part of the word. So he needed you to be authentic so that both of you could be blessed. And Kenneth Whalum says the moral of that story is be who you is. If you ain't who you is, then you is who you ain't. That was one lesson learned. Another lesson was Joel Osteen tells the story of being at his father's bedside at his passing. And his dad said to him, I want you to take over the ministry. And Joel tells the story of how he hugged his mom and said, Mom, those are big shoes that Dad is wearing, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to feel Dad's shoes. And Joel says, Mom takes her hand and she lifts his chin up and looks him in the face and says, Son, you don't have to wear your dad's shoes. Wear your own shoes. And so the lesson in that one is be who you is, or if you ain't who you is who you ain't. The second lesson is wear your own shoes. And then thirdly, Timothy Fleming, who is a great Baptist preacher in Atlanta, Georgia at Mount Carmel Baptist Church. His son, also Timothy Fleming Jr., was coming along behind him as you are me. And Fleming said to me, he says, Harvey, what has worked for me wonderfully for 35 years may not work for my son. And so Fleming told me that, Junior, long before you came along. But I knew that lesson from him. What worked for me may not work for you. And so I was always cognizant of the fact to be there for you, but to let you find and cut your own path.
Yeah.
Like I had to cut my path. I knew that you had to cut your path. And I was happy for you to cut your path.
You're leading us right into another place that I really want us to deal with tonight and just talk through. And that is the work of the ministry. And so I could even be reminded now, while we're not trying to preach on here, the story of David and how David as a young shepherd boy would go out into, Pastor Scott, good evening. David as a young shepherd boy would go out into the field where his brothers and the army were, and where Goliath was taunting them. And they were supposedly the ones who should have dealt with the enemy to the people named Goliath. But David was the one who accomplished the job. He got the job done. And so there are some giftings and some anointings that go along with what we call the work of the ministry. Some stuff that we are gifted to do and inclined to do that make our work less workish, because there is a grace on you or a God-given ability to accomplish a thing, if it's church ministry, if it's professionalism on your job, if it's your ability to raise a family, there are things that God divinely empowers us to do that are ours to do. And then on the other hand, there are things, Reverend Orlando Magruder, good evening. There are things that we strive to do that are not in line with God's divine empowerment on us, that feel like work, and it drains us and it strains us and it overtaxes us because it's not in our spiritual wheelhouse. How do we discern and find comfort in whatever my lane is, where I can be serving and living out of the gift of grace, and not always in overdrive in life, trying to make it happen, tired, burnt out, spent? How do we manage what we call work and work within our grace or our anointing or our lane, whatever language is best?
So that reminds me of a lesson that I had to learn in life. Years ago, I had the opportunity to host the late Reverend Dr. E.V. Hill. And for young people who are listening to us, E.V. Hill in those days was like T.D. Jakes now. And for me, I was Rickey Jr.'s age. So that would have been like Rickey Jr. hosting T.D. Jakes. He was big. And we were driving to the four-way grill, and I had I got E.V. Hill in my car, and he's interested in my conversation. And I'm telling him all of the things that I could do, and I'm telling him all of the things that I could not do. And I had a steno pad at that time with a pen that was a half of a sheet of paper tablet, because I got E.V. Hill in here, and he's going to tell me about the things that will work for me in life. And I'm ready to write almost a book because this is E.V. Hill. And I shared with him all of my aspirations, all of my inspirations, and all of the things that I could do, and all of the things, and this is for young preachers, men and women, young preachers, all of the things that my church would not let me do. And how frustrated I was because the church would not let me operate in what I call the giftings that were within me. So we get to the restaurant, and E.V. Hill just ordering. He said, "I'll take some cabbage. Do you have any greens? Do you have any neck bones?" Just happened to be at the four-way grill. And I'm just waiting with my pen ready to write. And when it was time for him to talk to me, he said, "So you can't do this?" I said, "I can't do that." "You can't do this?" I said, "I can't do that." "And they won't let you do this?" I said, "They won't let me do that." And he went down the road. He regurgitated everything that I said to him. He said, "Well, Harvey, let me tell you what you do. If you can't do this, that, and the other," and I got my pen ready, so I'm ready to write. He says, "Do what you can." And he said, "Ma'am, do y'all have any banana pudding?" And I thought that would be more. That was all E.V. Hill said to me. Do what you can.
Great.
And Doc, when I tell you that changed my life, because a lot of what we call gifting and desires and abilities are the things that we saw other people doing in their churches. Wow. Somebody is doing this in their church, and we take that to be, oh, that's my calling. Somebody is doing this in their church. I saw a lot of stuff going on in churches that I could not do. But then the Lord has gave me things to do that other folk could not do. So do what you can. And you use the term, Junior, you say don't over spiritualize this thing. And I say to all preachers, don't over spiritualize, because we get this quickening thing and think there you go. That the Holy Ghost has told you to do something, and it wasn't the Holy Ghost, that was your friend. So you got to know how to distinguish the voices of your friends from the voice of God. Lastly, God will assign you to do projects that you do not finish.
Wow.
You're not designed. You may not be designed to finish every project that God assigns to you.
Mm.
I mean, you know about Moses and Joshua, the promised land. Sometimes one has to cultivate the land,
Ooh.
cultivate the people, get the people ready for the work. And by that time, you're exhausted, but you've also exhorted God in the proper way, and God will put you where you can find rest and ease in ministry. And then he'll bring somebody else for the journey. There's so many stories that I could tell about that. But so do what you're told to do what you can, and find peace in knowing when I lay down at night, I did what I could do. Do what you can.
That's huge. To do what you can, and it's huge for us to be humble enough to come to grips with the reality that as an individual, catch this, I may not be the whole cake in any particular situation.
Not the whole cake.
You got people coming to your ministry, coming into your life that God is availing you the opportunity to care for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we think, oh well, I'm attached to this person, so yeah, I'm supposed to be able to help. You're a drug addict, you're depressed, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideations. You came to me. I'm a pastor, and I'm a person. I'm a person of faith, so I'm supposed to be able to help you. And a lot of times, humility will help us acknowledge maybe I'm not your whole cake. Maybe I'm just eggs for you. Maybe I'm just flour. Maybe I'm just stirrer. Maybe I'm just inspiration. Maybe I'm just an encourager to you along the path and in the recipe of how God's going to help you find wholeness. So that, listen, that is priceless. That's a priceless leadership lesson learned, that we don't have to finish. Every assignment is not designed for us to start and finish.
And just you don't get incomplete. This is not school. You don't get incomplete. You don't get an I because you don't finish the assignment. See, the assignment is going to get finished. It just may not be that you are the finisher. You get well done. You don't get an incomplete. When you're doing what God has told you to do, your grade is always a D for well done. Well done. Well done. Not an incomplete.
And I'm hearing you say that the assignment is not the task. Every assignment from God is only faithfulness.
Faithfulness. Yeah.
That God has a way of using our faithful, and this has a lot to do, one, with our theology of God, and two, with our image of ourselves. That we acknowledge how we can be both. We can have self-esteem and self-confidence and total reliance on God. Right? That
absolutely.
I'm totally content. Of course, I want to see the job done.
Right.
But my contentment has to be in that I am faithful to what God is calling me to do. Because to your point, he may not let me finish the job. I may just have and so ministry in more ways than one is more of a relay race.
Right. Yeah.
And
than a marathon. Than
a marathon. And that is so necessary. And so not just ministry, but life.
Right.
That you who build a home and plant a tree, may never see shade from that tree.
You may never see shade from that tree, or you may never see that tree cut down to build somebody else a house. But you're rewarded for the work that you do. You're rewarded for the work that you do.
I don't care that. Listen, this is good.
Here's another thing, Rick, and always remember, and I say this to pastors all the time, always remember that you're working for God and not for the people. People will break your heart. People will break your heart. People will make you cry. People will watch you work and not say give you what we all like appreciation. We all like validation. We all like affirmation. But if you don't understand that my validation, and I'm not saying that I've always been there, and I'm not in no wise am I saying that I do not appreciate the affirmation, the affirming of man and the validation of man, but I do understand I do understand that affirmation comes from God, because people will break your heart. They'll let you work until your hair fall out, till you drop dead. They will put a black sheet over your seat for 3 days. Search
Listen,
committee replace you, take your picture down so fast. So don't ever think that it can't go on without you, because it can and it will, but always know that I'm working for God. And that's why I keep struggling. That's why I keep going when there is no appreciation. And sometimes people don't appreciate you moving them, because change hurts.
yeah,
Growth is change. You're not growing and staying in the same place at the same time.
sure.
You're not growing and not moving. Anytime you're growing, it hurts. That's why babies cry a lot, because the growing pains hurt. And
That's pretty
nobody
hard.
likes pain.
I wanna start approaching the finish line for this session, but I wanna ask again. I want you to speak to, and I'll share some as well. Some of the ways that the current season between COVID and racism and life happening to us. Um, how are you growing and changing as a person and then as a pastor?
So I think even after 35 years, that preaching has to become more real than ever before. If anybody preaching would tell you that there's not some entertainment in preaching, I would argue that they're not 100% truthful. I would
You're
argue,
right.
I would argue that if they say that there is not a level, some level of entertainment in preaching, uh, and that we don't really, that, and if people say that crowds don't feed us, people shouting, people saying amen, people waving, and people shaking our hands, if people say that none of that affects their preaching abilities and delivery, then I would just need to more conversations with them, because for 35 years I've fed on the response of the people. One of the things I think God has done for all of us in this season is He's pulled off all of the
Mm,
fat, the stuff that didn't make ministry. One is the response of the people while we're preaching versus the response of the people when they leave your preaching. You don't know how well that sermon was until a person's life indicates that through some change that happened as a result of some preaching that you did.
sure.
So I think that's one of the things that I really had to learn how to preach to a laptop computer that does not say amen.
Wow.
Secondly, uh, a lesson learned is I've had people responding saying, Pastor, I just missed the building. Oh, the building. I can't wait to see the building. I just want to drive by and look at the building. Rick, I really believe that God took us out of the building for people who just can't have church without the building.
Mm,
Because the building, He says, I am the Lord thy God. I'm a jealous God, and thou shalt have no other God before me. And some people could not worship. It's like can't drink coffee without cream. Some people just couldn't. If the building, if you move the piano from one side of the church to the other in the building, if the flags were changed from one side to the other in the building,
You sound like you're talking about my church.
then people couldn't worship God. People couldn't worship God. So I think God took us out of the building to show us that the church is not the building. And then lastly, God let all of these things happen to us. The pandemic, racism. If it were not for the pandemic, we wouldn't have time to concentrate on racism like we are now. We would be in school, we would be in work, or we would be resting for one or the other. Got to work, got to rest for work, got to rest for school, got to rest for something. So consequently, God allowed all of this stuff to happen at a time when people got time to deal with it now. So my response, a lesson is take this good time that you got to learn, that you got to live, take this time and deal with some things in life that you haven't had time to deal with before. That's why the crowds are so big now. People got time. Schools are out. Yeah, people got time.
I'll tell you what I have gained in this season, and it is that my energies have been more so oriented to myself.
Yeah.
And as leaders, as creatives, so often our sense of drive and our sense of creativity are both aimed to the benefit of the people we serve. And I think we're designed like that in a lot of ways, and that's not a bad thing. But what I have enjoyed is that my drive and creativity, yes, I'm still serving in a really interesting virtual capacity these days. And so it's taking a lot of drive and a lot of creativity to keep our youth ministry together and to serve on our pastoral team at our church. But I'm finding that in my fitness journey, the drive that I've been able to apply has been so beneficial to me. Dad, I'll be 30 next year, and I started cooking for real in March of 2020.
Wow, that's good. That's good.
It's funny, but I'm being so creative. I'm cooking good creative food. I've been posting stuff on social media. People have been literally asking me, like, my family will pay you. Can you do that for us? Like, cater that, and I don't want it to be work for me, because it's a place where I get to be creative for my own benefit and not to try to draw people, not to try to retain people. And that's what we do with our creativity and our drive. We draw people, we retain people. We got to keep you entertained so that you can hear the gospel message. So you got to like the singing. You got to like my diction. You got to like my choice of words. You got to like the relevancy of my message. To your point, it is about entertaining for enlightenment. But I have enjoyed that entertaining myself.
Absolutely. And when we connect to the scripture, it really says, love thy neighbor as thyself. And one of the things that we learned during this quarantine times is not only did we not really love ourselves, we didn't even know ourselves. People were locked up in their houses saying, what am I going to do?
Wow.
What am I going to do? I'm not used to, not only am I not used to spending this much time with my family, I'm not used to spending this much time with myself. So what am I going to do? And so one of the things you got to do is you got to fall in love with yourself again. Angie McMichael sings this song, Falling in Love. One of the things you got to do is you got to fall in love with yourself. Get to know yourself. What do you like to eat, Junior? What do you like to watch on TV? What do you like to, how do you like to fix your hair? What do you want to wear? Fall in love with yourself, and then when you love yourself, and I'm not saying stand in the mirror and saying how great thou art, but I am saying love yourself enough to give yourself good food. Love yourself enough to exercise. love yourself enough to rest, not be lazy, but
Now,
rest.
and I want to add this to that, because one of the affirmations that I tell myself when I'm working out and it's getting tough is that this is what love, I'm about to shout. This is what love feels like. Okay.
Yeah. This is what love feels like.
When I have gotten into the second and third mile,
Yeah.
and I'm breathing heavily, and it's not as easy. And so there is this, we know how to sacrificially love other people well for our own good. Keep you in my life, keep you happy. And so I will sacrifice out of my love for you. I think this season is giving us an opportunity to sacrificially love ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That I'm paying the price sacrificially of spending that time in the kitchen prepping. I'm cutting up onions a bit. I'd have cut up so many onions a bit. If I don't cut another onion and bell pepper in these last 4 months, that's been my sacrifice of self-love. It's a financial benefit.
Sure.
It is a physical health benefit that I'm not eating all of these additives that I cannot pronounce, right? And so self-love costs us something. And I think that is an indicator of when we know. Not we always talk about loving other folks, and that's a given, I hope, in our walk, right? But I think we can do a better job of highlighting how we. All right, here we are. We went down for a second. I think we can do a better job of highlighting how we can love ourselves.
Absolutely.
To the point of sacrifice, Jesus endured for the joy that was set before him. You know why I'm enduring these runs and these 7-mile walks and enduring, standing over for the joy that's set before me, that in my love, not just for my neighbor, but for myself. If I will pay the price for whatever goals I'm trying to attain, Dad, you know, I'm in school. I decided to make the choice, to make the financial sacrifice, to make the time sacrifice. I serve a church that has the kind of needs, just like you do, that my presence is valuable as a leader. And I decided to even make the sacrifice. Like, listen, I'm not going to sacrifice my own productivity on the altar of church work, my own development on the altar of church work. And so those kind of sacrifices, I think, are evidence of self-love. We got to ask ourselves that question. Where is it evident in my life that I love myself?
Yeah. So that's a good question right there. Where's the evidence? I like that. Where is the evidence? And as we bring this to a close, I think it would be good for all of the people who are listening to us to just ask yourselves, where is the evidence?
Somebody type that
in your life. Where is the evidence?
I love myself.
If you were arrested and convicted, if you were arrested for loving yourself, would there be enough evidence to convict you? If you got arrested for loving yourself, could they find enough evidence to convict you? And we're not even talking about the love for God now, because the Bible says, how can you love God and you've not seen, and you don't love your brother, and you can't love your brother until you love yourself. So loving yourself. And again, I want to overemphasize the fact of not being narcissistic and, self-aggrandizing, but just loving yourself the way God has created us to love ourselves.
This has been another great installment of lessons learned about leadership and life. Thank you for your genius, for your time, for your sacrifice tonight. I appreciate you. You are a main ingredient in the secret sauce of what God's doing for me. I want to say thank you. I'm excited. We're going to do something special for Father's Day next week. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll have some co-hosts, or maybe we'll do something really cool. But something's going to happen really cool. I'll share this like this there? And give us our closing word tonight.
Well, our closing word tonight is caring. It's self-care. It's caring for yourself. A closing thought for tonight is do something for yourself today. Do something for yourself. Enjoy being you. Everybody wants to be somebody else. But listen, as many people as want to be some, there's a you in you that's yet not been discovered, that you have not tapped into all of you. And so there's some gifting that I would encourage you to tap into. Tap in to yourself. Whoever the greatest person you see on earth, there's not another person that's in it greater than you. God made him out of him or her out of the same dust that he made you out of. And so if you tap into yourself, you're going to discover, even between now and next week, you're going to discover some things about yourself that's going to blow your own mind. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you, Junior, for this moment that you give us to be with each other and to share with the world of friends that we have.
All right. Thanks, Dad. We'll see you all next week. Thanks, family. Y'all have a great week. Take care, Dad. I'll see you next Sunday.
Peace. Love you.